Welcome to Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension.
Welcome to another podcast episode of Merkaba Chakras. I'm your host, Vaughn Galt, and today we discuss even more ways to connect to the energy of source code with author and spiritual teacher Ernesto Ortiz. Now, Ernesto is the founder of Journey to the Heart, which is a company focused on raising the consciousness of humanity through their connection to the heart. Now, with that, Ernesto, welcome to Merkaba Chakras.
You so much, Bonhal, for having me as a guest in your program.
Oh, I'm so delighted. And I love all the different ways in which people connect to that heart field and the renaissance within consciousness. So before we dig into this juicy topic, because this is one of my favorites as well, can you tell us your story for how you even got into this work?
Well, that's a very long story. If you have a 4 hour slot, we can do all
Uh,
that. However,
highlights.
I can just make it concise. Um, I was born in Mexico City, and was fortunate to have been born in a very well-to-do family. Uh, they had coffee plantations in the state of Veracruz. So from a very early age, I went to the farm, the hacienda, uh, and instead of staying inside with my cousins and learning how to play chess and things like that, I kicked off my shoes immediately and I went outside to be with the workers. So by being with the workers, they taught me how to pick coffee and things like that. And little by little, they accepted me, I suppose, because I was the son of the owners. But they saw more than that as time went by. And that was that curiosity, that genuine interest that I had in their way of being, their way of living, which was completely opposite from what I was experiencing with my family. So they started inviting me to their homes, their little, very simple homes, a group of about 80 people. And two of them, a couple, were the elders, so to speak, of this group. And they were the shamans, the healers, the curanderos. At that age, 8, 9, 10 years old, I had no idea what that was. But they started doing some ritual and ceremony with some people and taking herbs and beating them up with them and blowing smoke and alcohol. And then they started doing all of that to me. And I was a kid, 8, 9 years old, going like, oh, I don't know what all of this is, but I kind of like it. So
Yeah.
beat me up and blow me with the smoke and, you know, spread the alcohol. I like that. And what happened is that by being exposed to this magical world of Mexican mysticism, my third eye and my chakras were beginning to open up and align to other dimensional realities that were not part of what my upbringing was bringing me or giving me. And so this opened the world of shamanism to me without knowing what shamanism was. And by the time I got to be 11 years old, I was there observing a healing process. And this man, the shaman, took an egg and started rubbing the egg on this woman's neck and under her arms. And I'm going, I don't remember seeing that before, but okay. So when he finished, he took the egg and cracked it. And what came out was black, black. And at that point, I said, wow, I don't know what that is, but I want to do that. I want to learn how to do that. And that strong affirmation is what began opening the doors of shamanism in my life.
Wow. That's so you kind of got into it early. You didn't get some people get into shamanism in whichever culture they get into it through much later in life, but you kind of, I mean, 8 or 9, that's when you start developing your own sense of self.
Yep.
Now what was your upbringing aside from, you said you came from a traditional upbringing. What was the traditional upbringing that
Uh,
you came from?
a very pseudo-Catholic family.
Okay.
And I say Catholic because they went occasionally to church to look good and all of that, but without real the
Check.
real spiritual meaning of the Catholic religion. So what happened is that at the same time that I had this exposure to shamanism at that very early age, I had a very deep interest on church, and
Hmm.
I was, in fact, wanted to become a monk because I was so deeply connected to the energy of Saint Francis of Assisi.
Mm-hmm.
So, my path was from a very early age divided between the mystical, folkloric, shamanic Mexican culture, and also the Catholic faith. So I was balancing those out, until the point that it was, for lack of answers that the Catholic Church, the priest, did not have for me, then I chose to completely remove myself from the Catholic faith and start looking for answers as to how the mind operates, how I create the condition of my mind, how the reality that I was experiencing at the time was becoming a reality.
Right.
I never knew that, I never believed that it was by chance, even at that early age. So you can say that maybe I came to this lifetime with with the good karma to have been exposed to that at that early age, and all of this has been the the building blocks of my life and my faith in the way that it is right now, which is wide open. So it's not
Right.
narrow to follow just one system of shamanism or one religion, but is wide open to accept everything in the space of the heart with the right understanding.
Right, right. And one of some of there was a couple of things that you mentioned in how you got thrown in, or how you got exposed to your work right now. Um, One, your Catholic upbringing. I mean, there's a lot of people who are very spiritual, and they open into shamanism, or they open into mysticism in different ways through their spiritual exploration of consciousness, but they are still trying to kind of toggle between both paradigms. And the spiritual aspect doesn't really have a box, so it incorporates the other, but the religious does not always incorporate any others. So you couldn't find a way to balance the two. You had to completely sever the
Well,
Catholicism to
that
get
was my
into the
search.
shamanism.
That was my search. What I do know, and we realize is that I realize is that we create a split of the mind between the yours and the mine, between the
Hmm.
your religion is better than mine, and all of these things, and that never really made sense to me. So it's not that I sever completely those beliefs because they are still very much present in my life, but they have widely open
Mm.
to the point that in the way that I'm experiencing my life now for a long, long time, which is without the duality of separatism.
Okay.
Is everything is in the spirit of oneness, and it's only us humans that create that duality, that separation between one thing and the other, and that is what keeps us, in this split consciousness because we're not capable, well, we're capable, but we don't do the work to, and that is the ego that gets in the way of
Hmm.
accepting, the bridge that most exists between one thing and the other, and to make it to be a part of the totality of the whole.
Right, right. Very, very well explained. And then when you were meeting up with workers in your family's farm, and as they were doing these different rituals on you, you said that you had come into different dimensional experiences. What were some of the, so that people understand when they first come into understanding different dimensions and kind of wider breadth of reality, can you explain what that experience was like so that people can go, oh, I recognize that, or okay, I know what to look for. If it comes through, it's not going to scare me.
Well, it's what I can say is that I think that the shaman or the couple there, the shamans, opened my third eye,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And when they open my third eye, you can see beyond dimensions and enter other realities that are present in vibratory form, but they're not as gross to be able to be perceived by humans that are not connected or fine-tuned to that frequency.
Mm.
So what did I see? My God, I saw so many things that were part of the unseen, because they were not present in my ordinary reality, but they were as real as the experience that I'm having with you right now, talking, seeing, feeling, tasting, smelling, all of that, but in a quality or in a way in which I had never experienced before, because I knew that it was not part of my conscious environment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was not what I experienced in school or not at home, but when I was in this place with them, and by being with them and the container that they created for
Mm-hmm.
this energy to emerge, is when I was there that everything just opened up into a way in which no restrictions, no limitations, no, and the full potential of what I experienced to be within myself was shown to me, and that to me became the, we can say, the starting point of an adventure of self discovery that has lasted my entire life.
Right, right. And can you describe what one of those experiences was like when you saw the different dimensions or the different higher realities?
Well, it was almost as I mean, that was a long time ago, that this happened, but there were some significant imprint, so to speak, in which I knew that I was journeying like a dream, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, but
Mm-hmm.
a dream in which I am aware, I'm conscious that I am here, having the visions, being in that experience, but not being asleep. And
Right.
and that manifested in a way of being able to journey, for example, to encounter pieces of my soul, like shamanic journey, and pieces of my soul that were scattered here and there. And I was 10, 11 years old, and having this experience and recognizing myself with a different body, a
Mm-hmm.
different time frame in life, a past
Oh,
life, in
what kind
which,
of body? What kind of body?
well, other bodies, that was not the body of a child,
Oh,
the
okay,
body
yeah.
of an adult, or the body of another body, but with the recognition of this face, the essence of myself, and just being able to go, wow, look at that. I am here as I am right now, but at the same time, I recognize all the features, all the qualities, all the pains, all the that
Mm.
was encapsulated in that form that I was looking at.
Right,
And that also, it's a travel to a place in which it was like a wonderland, in which
right.
plants and animals and all that were just in this magical balance, in which there was not this harmony, but just a complete harmony. And just being in that space uh, wanted me to I wanted to have more of that and more understanding of it, you know
Yeah.
and that was I was able to achieve when I was about 16 and a half, 16 years old, when I was fortunate enough to meet a woman in Mexico. Her name was Maria Sabina. She
Mm-hmm.
was like the high priestess in the world of magic mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was introduced to magic mushrooms at that age, and that just completely opened my mind
Mm-hmm.
and reinforced everything that I had learned when I was still much younger in my life.
Right. So it connected those those experiences.
It created
Yeah.
the bridge that gave me the ability to understand.
Right, right. Um, Yeah, for some people, when they first get into this this awareness of reality being much, much more fluid and not as solid as many people think it is, it's much more holographic in nature, and changes based on your level of consciousness and your frequency. It can kind of, I wouldn't say blow their mind, but almost scare them back into regression, like scare them back into, oh, this is too much uncharted territory. So it takes a courageous person to kind of keep charting forward.
It's
And
like
so
lack of understanding,
yeah,
And
yeah.
you say solid dimension, you know, well, we have to understand that the nature of things
Hmm.
are empty,
Yes.
and in emptiness there is form, and in form there is emptiness. And that is a concept that for many people is very difficult to understand,
Hmm.
because we see anything, the cup that you are holding, and we think, well, this is solid. But yes,
Yeah.
it is solid, to a certain degree. But if we start reducing that solidity, m- 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 times, what we can see is that in reality there's hundreds of thousands or millions of atoms that are creating this form, and
Hmm.
between those atoms there is emptiness. I mean,
Yep.
just philosophical and scientific
Yeah,
concepts
they've
that a
proven
lot
it
of
in
people
science that
cannot fully understand.
exactly. And you are privy to that in your shamanic experiences, that all form, as solid as it seems, is really emptiness. And they've proven this in science as well. And I've written books on this, where when they do research in like quantum physics and in just any kind of physics, and they go into like the structure of that cup, they keep going down. There's really nothing there. It's just more emptiness, more emptiness, more emptiness. So what creates the physicality is the observer seeing it as a cup that makes it a cup.
Correct.
And that's what they found in science, and understanding that in science, understanding that in the metaphysical aspects of shamanic, or of different spiritual traditions, that this is all illusory dream world that we dream into reality, is something that people are still trying to learn and understand. But for people like yourself, who's really venturing into the depths
See,
of consciousness,
uh,
we are telling everyone the same thing: dream a better dream.
I think that trying to conceptualize this or to have a rational understanding of it is not going to work.
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know I mean, it's just simply not going to work, because if we have not created the neurons in our brains, out of the billions of neurons that are in our brain that can accommodate that type of understanding,
Right.
it's simply going to bypass you. So here's your understanding, this is the other reality, and you simply don't connect. So for
Yeah.
me, in my life, uh, eh, this has not been a rational understanding, but an experiential understanding.
Yes.
And there is a huge difference between rational understanding and experiential understanding, which is the same as knowledge.
Hmm.
Knowledge is intellectual, but knowledge is not wisdom. you know and the transition between knowledge and wisdom is when we give that knowledge sufficient amount of it, an experiential understanding that creates the bridge to wisdom. Knowledge is something that is non-permanent. You
Hmm.
learn something today, you learned something 10 years ago, and by now probably has gone away.
Yep.
But if you have an experiential understanding that is connecting you to that thing that you learn, then that becomes a permanent imprint and gives the brain, the neurons on the brain, the ability to start reproducing in a way that gives you the ability to have higher understanding of whatever concept you are interested in study or to learn.
Yes. Oh, very, very, very well, well clarified. Because, I follow a lot of medical journals and science journals for much of my adult life, and I just kind of wait around for science to get to the point where in their research can the left brain research can only go so far, and then it starts getting esoteric. And every single scientist and researchers know that the further they get into studies of consciousness, it starts getting very esoteric, and then there's no words and there's no ways to really quantify anything. It becomes something that you have to experience. It's like love. You can study it, you can try to measure how people fall in love, etc. But until you actually experience being in love, then you don't really know what love is.
Yeah.
Once you experience it, then you know, and you have that muscle memory. And the muscle memory creates
David.
wisdom, which is something that is not necessarily learned, but experienced. So, well stated.
And the beauty of today's world, like you just said to me, is science.
Hmm.
Science has come to validate or disprove many things that we have known at the metaphysical level for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
Right.
So, I love science because of that. And so when there is a particular concept that science comes to validate, even His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he's an avid student of science, and since the 1980s, he has been in connection with scientists to prove or disprove certain Tibetan beliefs. I have had the great opportunity to be a presenter in different symposiums in shamanism and consciousness, or spirituality and neuroscience, etc. So things like that. And most of these have been, well, a couple here in the US, but most of them in France, with world-renowned scientists that come together to talk about this. And I have had this great opportunity to sit with these scientists, with these researchers, to talk about consciousness, to talk about spirituality. And at the end of the game, at the very end of the game, they say, well, the truth is, we simply don't know.
Yeah.
And that to me is the beauty of everything, which is the mystery. And once we surrender to the mystery, then we can begin to understand how the mystery happens in our lives.
Right, right. Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, so Ernesto, you've written two books on how to tune into the wisdom of the Akashic records. Now, what is the wisdom that the Akashic records that you read say about humanity's collective consciousness as we catapult into fifth dimensional awareness with Earth?
Well, we're already in the fifth dimension. It's not catapulted anywhere.
I say the same thing, but some people argue with me because they want to continue to see the 3D world and continue to function in 3D world. And
nothing wrong with that.
It's your journey.
We can adapt. That we are creatures of that adaptation. So those that believe that only the third or the fourth dimension are there, well, okay, that's their belief, and the belief is valid. But science, once again, has proven that there is not only the fifth dimension, but science has proven that there's actually 10 dimensions.
Yeah, actually, I read an article. There's 11 dimensions in which our physical brain can perceive, but there's more than 11. But just in terms of measuring what they're able to perceive from the brain, that's what they've proven is 11.
That's what science has proven, but that doesn't mean that there is not hundreds of thousands of dimensions out there. So you ask, how does the Akashic records, how Akasha can help all of this? Well, in 2014, there was a symposium in Milan, Italy, headed by Professor Erwin Laszlo. And he has dedicated the majority of his life to understand Akasha, from a scientific point of view.
Oh, interesting.
He gave me a beautiful, long testimonial about my work, for my books, in which, he says you're able to bridge, science and spirituality in a way that is easy to understand. So what scientists at the end of this symposium said is that they have now the scientific proof, that absolutely everything, without discounting one single thing, everything in the entire universe falls into one category, and that one category they have labeled the Akashic fields. Now, what is the function of the Akashic fields according to science, which is the same understanding that we have from a metaphysical point of view, that this is a substance that exists everywhere in the universe, is inside and outside of us, is in the room where you're sitting right now, where I am right now, where your viewers are gonna be sitting when they watch this interview, is present everywhere. The difference is that most people are not capable of perceiving this dimension because they're not fine-tuned to it.
There,
Now,
yes, very good.
once you have the ability, and truly it's about the brain capacity to form the neurons, to grow the neurons in our brains that gives us the capacity to recognize this field, then we can jump into the Akashic field and explore the hundreds of thousands of dimensional realities based on the ability that we have created within our mind to explore that. So if there's a 10th dimension and we're only functioning at the 4th dimension, the 10th dimension, we're not going to see it.
Right. It's going to be invisible to us.
Yeah, it's invisible, correct. If we're at the 4th dimension, there's a 5th or a 6th or a 3rd or a 2nd or a 1st or a -1 dimension or -2 or -10 dimension, you know, we cannot perceive it because we're not fine-tuned to that energy. Yeah. So once we find ourselves fine-tuned to that energy, we can then jump into it, so to speak, and explore what is there, which is what happened to me when I was a kid. Now, the function of Akasha is to record information of any living organism at any one time. So basically everything is alive. Everything in the entire universe is alive. So the function of Akasha is to record every single output of energy that any living organism gives to that field.
Right.
So we can reduce it.
And what do we give to that field? All these organisms.
Emotions.
Okay.
So all emotions that we exchange in thought, in words, in feeling, etc., are an imprint that is coming out and is imprinting within the Akashic fields.
Right. So all of the beings within creation is sending out an energy that we call emotions to the field, and it's being recorded.
Not only the beings, you know, but, you know, planet Earth is an organism that is alive. So the Earth is giving that energy. The sun, the moon, Mars, Venus, Pluto, everything is alive in the universe. So everything is giving an output of energy to this field, and the field is simply receiving that and recording it. So the Akasha is a substance, Akasha is a Sanskrit word that means primary or primordial substance. And this is an energy that comes from the past to the present and will continue move into the future. So it is endless, it's eternal.
It's endless. There is, that's very good, because there's a lot of people who always want to seek prophecy, look for predictions, try to mark the end of the world. And what do you say to people who basically are looking forward to the end of the world?
Oh, that's
or living as if it's like the end of the world.
That's what they want to believe. What I would say to them, prepare. You know, if you think that the end of the world is coming, and to me, the end of the world is the end of my life. So I, you know, in the space of understanding impermanence, I know that I can very well, after this interview, die. You know, who knows? Why not? In fact, I have died already twice in this lifetime, so drowned it twice. So my third time is probably the final one. So the end of the world is cataclysm. Also, if that is the case, so be it. But if the end of the world is the end of your life, in either of the cases, what I would say to people like that is prepare. Instead of being in fear of what is going to happen, take the necessary steps today to clean up all of your karma, all of it.
Do your life work.
To forgive, to be in the space of the heart, to be kind, compassionate, tolerant, you know, joyous in your life, to have the appreciation of beauty of life. Live your life like if you're truly living it, instead of worry about the end of the world, cataclysm. It will happen. It already happened once, right?
We have cataclysms all the time.
With the dinosaurs. Well, if we are the dinosaurs of this age, so be it.
Yeah,
Live
yeah.
your life to the best of your ability and prepare to die. I
I
prepare
would
to die
totally I
every day, you
exactly.
know.
I would totally agree with you on that because a lot of these prophecy seeking, prediction, dire doomsday scenarios, as sensationalized as they are, and they do get a lot of ratings, and they do get a lot of exposure. They come and go and come and go, and then you're still living and breathing. And if a natural disaster or something comes, economic befall, whatever happens, they come and go, and you still continue to breathe and carry on. So, and so at some point, it's like, okay, when are you going to? In my mind, I say, when are you going to grow up and start taking responsibility for your consciousness and how you create your reality and how you see the Dharma. Instead of,
That's judgment in a way, you know,
yeah,
whether they take a responsibility for the consciousness or not is their own karma, you know.
it is.
And
They
what
are
we have
creating that
to have
karma. Yeah.
more, to me, more than that is to be kind with individuals like that, and to know that they are creating in their own mind whatever is that they need to create
Mm,
in order to live their life in a good way or a bad way. So there is no judgment, you know. I am
yeah.
not here to change anyone. I am not here to 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 clash with anyone's beliefs, you know,
Right.
because all beliefs are true. And if what you believe is your truth, then who am I to tell you that that is not the ultimate truth? What
Right.
my job is to present in a simple way the facts, you know, with
Mm,
kindness, with love and compassion, with the hope that individuals that have had a narrow way of thinking, they can open that up and see that there's a more extraordinary reality that is not based on fear,
yeah.
you know.
That's critical.
And the ratings and all that to me are just completely insignificant,
Mm-hmm.
because I do know that if I get 50 likes or 100 likes or 10,000 likes, is not going to make any difference in my
Right.
life. I know that for some people that makes a huge difference, and they are working, looking for those likes,
Yeah.
and people go into this depression if they don't get them. However, to me, I embrace more the understanding of impermanence,
Right.
you know, and I can leave my house here in the next hour, hour and a half, and a car comes, hits me, and that's the end of it.
Yep.
So am I prepared for that? Have
Mm,
I, do I have all of my mental and emotional affairs in order for that sublime moment when it
mm-hmm.
happens, even if it's just like that? So instead, for me, instead of preoccupying myself with with beliefs of catastrophe or apocalypse or
Mm,
doomsday and all that, I choose not to put my
attention.
mind. I reduce it back again to the neurons of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
The neurons of the brain are just simply going to reproduce whatever it is that we put on it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I am putting, you know, misinformation, if I am putting fear, if I'm putting the doomsday energy in there,
Mm-hmm.
well, that is what my brain is going to reproduce, and is going to be connecting to the collective consciousness of other individuals that are thinking the same,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But
Yeah.
instead, my choice, and that's just personal choice, that instead of going in that direction in my way of thinking, I take my malas, you know, I stay in the space of devotion. I stay in the space of the heart. I stay
Mm,
in the space of preparation. I stay in the space of looking at every single element of karma, negative karma, that I might have consciously or unconsciously have created in my life, and then do whatever it takes for me to clean that karma. Any disagreements with anyone, any type of lack of forgiveness is gone in
mm-hmm.
my life. I don't have any, you know.
Yeah.
But in my classes, I
Your
ask the
heart field is
question.
clean.
It's clean. I
It's
ask the
clean.
question in my classes. I just finished a class with 45 people a few days ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I ask, how many of you have issues of lack of forgiveness? And everyone raises their hand. Either
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness, that you have to forgive yourself for someone or somebody else. And to me, it's like, wow, what if you died today and you still have all this karmic unresolved issues with your mother, your father, your
Mhm.
brother, your sister, your best friend, whatever. And that is, so what
Society, that's the newest one,
so
society.
what happens is that is the condition of the mind is what is transferred from one life to the next.
Right.
So is the consciousness
Mm-hmm.
that transfers from one life to the next. So if I die, well, all of this lack of forgiveness and anger and jealousy and all that, and the fears of life and the
Mm-hmm.
apocalypse and all that, that is going to be a permanent imprint in my consciousness
Yep.
that I am going to transfer to my next life. And then in my next life, I'm going to have to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
because I
so
am,
true. That is
and
so
because I'm
true.
aware of that, this life is so important for me to clean up all of my karma and to be in the space of my heart, to be in the space of kindness, forgiveness, love, tolerance, love and kindness. It's just a shift. If my mind goes into any type of aspect of negativity, I take my mala and I start
Getting it
doing my
meditative.
devotional practice to clean it up. And that's
Right.
and that's just simply what works for me. But I know that karma plays a big game in the way in which it grabs us. And then also we have to understand the components of the ego and how the ego wants to be gratified.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no gratification if you're home alone doing your practice, chanting your mantras, getting into the Akashic records to understand
Right.
the components of life. There is no gratification that the ego receives from what others say or perceive about you. So is the ego the one that is looking for acceptance of something?
Mm-hmm.
I believe in this conspiracy theory. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
do too. You do too. Wow. Now there's two of us are
Now there's
accepting
two paranoid people. Yeah.
the same truth. So suddenly you go
Mm-hmm.
from one individual to 100 individuals that believe on that same conspiracy theory. So now my ego is is feeling
Having fun.
powerful and
Yep.
gratified because of that.
Yeah.
But what happens when moment you die?
Mm-hmm.
What happens? What happened to that ego gratification? It goes away.
Mm-hmm.
So to me is far more important to daily looking at the karmic conditions that I might have created the previous 24 hours,
Right.
or the rest of my life, in order to do whatever it takes to clean that up and then have greater brain capacity to connect with higher frequencies that gives me the ability to become more of who I am.
Yes. Well state. Yeah, when I growing up for myself, I've had lots of friends who are in many different types of faith systems, and I've had some who their whole church actually thought that a specific day was going to be doomsday, and so they all hid in their basements and for days, and I as a little girl would go knocking on the door every single day because I would walk to school with my best friend. And after like the fifth day of knocking at the windows and doors, like, what is going on? Is everybody okay? My friend came up and opened the door, and she was really surprised that the world did not end because her whole church had thought this was going to be the end of the world. And so I was like, oh no, everything's still going on, but you missed a whole week of school and a lot of things have happened. And are you ready to go play? Let's go play. And so, we just resumed life as normal. But it was a big life lesson for her family and for her church. And bless their heart, I love them. But it was a big life lesson for them for spending all of their efforts on trying to predict a specific end to the world. And they thought that they were going to somehow survive the end of the world, but everybody else wasn't going to. And so it's like when what I noticed from that lesson, because it taught me a lesson as well as teaching them a lesson about living in that state of paranoia and fear, is that for everybody else, I missed out on some wonderful people that I love hanging out with, and that fear separated them from everybody else. So kind of separatism that you talked about earlier. But like you say, again, everybody has their journey, everybody has their life lessons, and they're attracting it to themselves. And it is for them to overcome and for them to learn and grow from. So whether they are ready to move on beyond certain experiences, they're going to do it in their own time. So for you and I, who are fifth dimensional and above awareness, it doesn't matter what's going on out there, because from within our consciousness, we are tuning into the higher energies, and we are going to attract naturally to ourselves a fifth dimensional or higher reality. And out there is going to change. So that's
Yeah,
something that everyone is going to go through on their own,
yeah.
in their own time. Now, let me ask you this. Now, in
I think, let
Buddhism,
me just say something very,
uh-huh.
that I think is very, very important. What you described is a collective belief. Okay, the belief that the world was going to come to an end and everybody went in hiding. Okay, so one of the most important things that we need to explore, and is in fact when I teach the Akashic records in the first level of the Akashic records, one of the most important things that we do is to begin to explore our belief systems,
Mm,
because our belief
yeah.
systems create a condition of the mind, and
Yes.
between the condition of the mind and the belief system, we create our reality. Period. That's it. That could end this conversation,
Yeah.
just as simple as that. However, most of us live our lives with old, antiquated belief systems that
Old
come from
conditioning.
will come from 2, 3 generations ago. Well, the belief creates the conditioning, but the belief has to be first in order,
Mm,
for the condition to be met, to be created. So when we start looking at belief systems and how they impact our lives, we live our lives because of this belief. So the individuals that you described during your childhood, that the girl that didn't go to school for a week because of the fear of the church and all of that, well, that was their belief system. But what happened when the world did not come to an end? Most likely they were challenged to review that belief.
and it
Now,
did. It forced them to. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so whether or not that they're going to overcome that wrong belief or not, that's up to them. Now, what is that? What is a wrong belief? The wrong belief is the misconception that is provided about something that is not the truth, that is incorrect information,
Mm.
information that is incorrect. So at one point in the 1800s, 1700s, we believed that the earth was flat,
Some people
right?
still do.
You know, well, that has been proven scientifically to be completely wrong a long time ago. So that cultural belief that the earth is flat changed when that wrong belief was challenged and it was proven to be wrong.
Right. Right.
So it's the same with every belief that each of us has based on our culture and our family dynamics. And we
Mm-hmm.
have to ask ourselves the question. I started asking myself that question when I was 15 years old, when I was looking at the condition of my life, the
Right.
money, the greed, and all that, the belief around my family. And I said, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. So I challenged those beliefs. And when we challenge the beliefs that we have, and then we find that they are incorrect,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we have a tool, in this case, the Akashic records, shamanism, whatever, that can give someone the ability to connect to a much higher truth that supports life in a much greater way, with greater amount of harmony, with less struggle, and with much more love and kindness for one another.
Right. Well said. Well said. Yeah, I like for myself, and I continue to reinforce this to other people I speak to and to my clients. Um, when I ask questions about, well, why do you feel that way about XYZ? Oftentimes it goes to their upbringing, and then I ask them, well, what in your upbringing brings you to that thought? It goes back down to their parents who instill unconsciously certain upbringings that they brought forward in the previous generations from their upbringing. So people are just basically cycling through unconscious belief patterns that they really don't believe in when they actually stop and pull it out and examine it. And so when they see and they hear it then they go, oh, that doesn't make any sense, and then they stop. But oftentimes people go into what I find go into autopilot with unconscious conditioning that they have picked up from their family, from their culture, from their race, from their religions or whatever. And then when they actually pull it out, they're like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. And so,
Yeah. It's
self-reflection is
attachment.
very important.
Yeah, yeah. What all of this does is create attachments. And
Yes.
attachments that provide us with a sense of belonging. We all want to
Mm.
belong, and if I challenge this belief system of my family, I mean, you come from an Asian culture, uh, I come from a Latin culture. My God, we're just so overwhelmed with wrong beliefs, but we all want to belong to that family. If we challenge those beliefs, then our family is gonna not be very happy with us, and that is gonna create guilt. So we trap ourselves in
Mm-hmm.
this dynamics, in this family dynamics, because we don't have many people don't have the guts, the
Yeah,
courage
courage.
to
Mm-hmm.
to face that and to say, no, this is wrong,
Yeah.
and you're wrong, and even though you're my mother, my
Yeah.
father, whatever, you're wrong. And this has been proven wrong by this or that way.
Right. I think it may come down to a survival thing of being wanting to be accepted by the tribe and not ostracized. Because if you're ostracized by the tribe, then it becomes hard to survive or have the resources to survive. So I think it's all kind of built in, but we also are a very conscious human species, so we can think outside the box and go above and beyond the basics. And courage, internal courage and integrity is what makes us different from many other animals who are still functioning in survival. So kind of rise above the animal instinct sometimes. Now, Ernesto, in Buddhism, to connect to the main creator in all people, one must recognize their interconnectivity to all beings in creation within the consciousness of Source. How can people heal their separatist beliefs about themselves and others, which includes the concept of the good guys and the bad guys?
Mm. Which is what I was saying earlier about duality,
Mm-hmm.
and the lack of understanding of the oneness of things. I think, to me, it gets to a point in which we have to challenge our ego, to really stop, and then
Train our ego differently. Don't let it take over.
to befriend it and to understand the reason why it operates in the way that it does,
Mm-hmm.
and how the ego surfaces, the negative ego, how it surfaces and manifests in different areas of our life, and how that becomes the predominant attitude based on ego responses. So this is an inner exploration.
Mm-hmm.
Every human being, based on what you were saying a moment ago, is looking for three things. Everyone: love, happiness, and acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone. So we're looking for that, but many times we have the conditioning and the dynamics within our our, our culture, our family, that don't allow us to see beyond that.
Right.
I am Catholic, so you cannot be Buddhist. You are Catholic is better than the Christian, and the this and that. So it's always this constant struggle of separation. And if we understand that this is a mental component
Mm-hmm.
created by the ego. Now,
Right.
when was the ego born? Do you know?
Mm, upon being born into life, you slowly. Okay, go ahead. I think the ego is born when, because you don't have an ego when you're born. You're just learning to adapt and you're learning about things, and it starts coming to form when you start putting your place against society, against your family. These different elements start forming what your identity is.
The imagine a little baby, okay? And that little baby is 6 months old, a year old, a year and a half old, and everybody's going, oh my God, what a cute little baby. And that little baby is just adorable. But then something happens right around 18 months of age, between 18 months and 24 months of age, 2 years, something happens. And that cute little baby just turns into this incredible monster.
Terrible twos.
The terrible twos. So the ego is born when we are between 18 months and 2 years of age. And this surfaces or manifests in the way in which we begin to create duality. So just imagine that here I am, a 2-year-old baby, and at the birthday party, I have 16 toys around me, and I am playing with this one because it's super cute. And then I put it down. Another little boy goes and takes that toy. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna go, no, that is mine. And mom is gonna go, come on, you have another 16 toys. But I'm gonna say, no, this is mine. So the ego at that early age begins to create that duality, that separation between the mine and the yours, between mine is better than yours, etc., etc. So we have to go back, and that's why the Akashic records are so precious, so delicious, because it gives us the ability to bend time and to go back from the moment that we are in today, with the consciousness that we have today, back in time into the moment in which the original imprint, in this case of the ego, was created, and then remove the energetic imprint at that time, so we can then remove the sense of duality from the self.
Yeah. So what now? Well, that begs the question, if you do ego death or ego removal.
No, not death of anything.
Okay. Removal, is that the more appropriate word? Ego removal or ego training? Training? I call it training.
To befriend and to balance.
Okay. So you make peace with your ego. Okay. So, and then you can continue forward living your life with a more balanced ego with yourself.
Well, the truth is that every one of us has two egos, or one ego divided into two, like the yin and the yang.
Okay? Like the good guy and the bad guy.
So one is the good ego, and the other one is the bad ego. So the
higher self and the ego. That's another way of saying it.
No, two egos.
Two ego. Okay.
Two egos. Good ego and bad ego. Simple to understand. So the good ego. So you say, okay, I want to go and take this class. Okay, it's going to cost $2,000 to go do it. But yes, I can do it. So the good ego is going, yes, you can do this. This is going to be great for you. Spirituality, personal development, rah, rah, rah. The good ego is the good cheerleader.
Yeah.
You get to that event, and then the bad ego starts finding fault in everything. The accommodations are not right. The water is not hot. The meals are not fully vegan. The accent to the presenter, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So there's the conflict between the good ego that says, go and do it, and the bad ego that is now saying, no, you're wrong. This is bad. Go away. So this is a constant battle between the two. Now, once we become aware of this and how it operates in our lives, then we have the choice or the option to start feeding the ego that serves us best.
Right.
So by feeding the ego that is the positive ego, and you feed it and you feed it and you feed it, that positive ego is going to start getting bigger and stronger, while the other ego, the negative ego, starts getting smaller and smaller. And it's going to get to a point in which that ego is so small that it's going to be relatively insignificant, while you continue nurturing the good ego, the positive ego, with whatever you want: kindness, love, compassion, beauty, tolerance, joy.
So even within the concept of the ego, there's the opposites, the good and the bad.
That's what creates all the problems in life.
Yeah.
Every
So
problem in life, it comes from this duality of ego separation.
right, right. So there is a rampant viewpoint that many people have about the bad guys, the evil guys, the whatever. And so I don't
Meaning,
know if
meaning individual, external individuals. Okay.
yeah. So how does the ego play in the concept of putting blame and almost kind of like a mob mentality to go seek out the evil guys and the bad guys and all that? I'm not writing off that bad things happen, quote, quote, bad things happen, and there are people who are not in the interest of other people, but um, there, but some people consume themselves with that hate of society that, oh, it's so horrible, there's so many bad things, et cetera, et cetera. Well, how does ego play into that perception?
I see it all as karmic conditions.
Mm,
If I give you a pair of glasses that allow you to see beyond what you are able to see or perceive right now, maybe when you see that someone that is very negative, very nasty, aggressive, etc., what you're seeing is what that individual is presenting to you at this very moment. But if you are not capable of seeing beyond that, then you're going to become a reactor. And the reactor comes from the body of knowledge that is connected or programmed to previous information and not from the body of wisdom. Okay. So that individual, if is going to be a reactor of that energy, then is going to get into what you mentioned, hatred, etc. But if you understand that, or imagine that you can understand the pain and suffering that is inside of this individual's body to be as negative as he or she is,
right.
that what happened in his childhood, the trauma, etc., or maybe these are pre created conditions, these are seeds of karma
Yep.
that have been planted in a previous life that are surfacing in this life. And everyone, we have to respect, that's a big word, we have to respect the fact that everyone is moving in its own spiritual evolution at the level and at the level and the speed that they can.
Right.
Now, another thing is this: most of us are not young new souls. So,
Yeah.
I know that I have had thousands of lifetimes. So, in those hundreds or thousands of lifetimes, I have been everything. I have probably killed you in a previous life. I have also been your mother, your father, as well as
Yep.
others. We have been everything for everyone.
There have been
But
a
we
lot
are
of
here
roles.
now. So
Yeah.
if you are where you are in your life, I am in my life in the way that I am, and the listeners of this information, they are where they are, is because we have gone through our karmic process in order to arrive at the lifetime of opportunity that we have now, which is to be conscious.
Yeah.
And consciousness is what makes the difference of everything. If you are not conscious, then you're going to react in a negative way to the bad things that someone is doing. Yes, it's doing harm to others, but that is the collective karma. In fact, what my belief is, that what we are going on, what we're going through in the world right now with this pandemic, is simply karma. Karma that we have created, that have put us exactly where we are today. And unless we rectify this karma, this is going to happen again and again.
Yeah. 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 Well stated. And I mean, it's so when you come when people, whether they come into do Buddhism or Mexican shamanism or any other mystic way in which they come into their awareness of reality and they come into their connection to consciousness, um, and start creating their reality and creating the way that they see things, um, from within that higher level of consciousness, uh, you know, you kind of let go of that judgment, because like you said, if you could do it through hypnosis, you could do it through reading Akasha records, you could do it through a lot of different ways in which you can see that you have been a lot of things prior to this incarnation, and just looking at this incarnation is a very small window of the fullness of who and what you are, within your existence. And so it's highly recommended as part of any meditation or any kind of spiritual practice to get an insight into your soul's fullness in like all its incarnations. Like, and I've had clients who have come to me because they've coming into their awakening and they've coming into their leveling up their consciousness where they're trying to make right wrongs. So I've had like drug dealer clients come to me going, okay, I I read some of your books, I got into this stuff, I'm having these experiences, I want to learn to create better my life. And so when I typically go through and work with them, it is found that they have been conditioned from their
Everyone has been
upbringing.
conditioned.
Yeah, unconscious conditioning or belief systems about certain things about society and about themselves, about other people, etc. And so they kind of walked into this role unconsciously and fulfilling this role, and they finally got to a point in their life somehow that they have come into their consciousness and are going, oh, I no longer want to be unconscious, like bystander of this role that I walked into. And so then they do a lot of self-reflection, a lot of work, and trying to kind of let go of the way that they see themselves, others, and society so that they can, like you said earlier, go to bed, free of any kind of issues in your consciousness, in your heart about not forgiving or about letting go of certain attachments to how they see society. And I see this quite often. I see people who society say are horrible, horrible people, and they're trying to make right a wrong so they no longer have to continue to incarnate, trying to fix what they did before, and then on top of that, add more garbage to their current incarnation. And so it's really important for everybody to go into, when you get into this work, you're going to do a lot of self-reflection about yourself, not just in this lifetime, but all the other lifetimes. So you're going to have a much higher understanding of yourself and of consciousness. I have another question. So in Buddhism, energy healing comes from source. Okay, like only the ego is going to take responsibility or accountability. Like, I did it, I healed you, I did this. it, we don't really see it that way. We see it as it comes from consciousness, comes from source, the main creator. And there are many ways to connect to fifth dimensional energy of Christ consciousness, of that higher being, or the crystalline consciousness through the heart. And I call it fifth dimensional energy because in order to heal, you heal with that higher perspective that you're all connected. So otherwise, you know, because everybody's interconnected. So what can people look forward to in learning the cranial sacred therapy and your Karmapa Reiki courses? Because you offer a couple of different energy healing courses as well. So can you talk about some of those courses if people want to take those?
Um, Cranial sacral therapy is just a therapy that is used to balance out the movements of the cranial bones and the sacrum
Mm,
via the dural tube, which is what houses the cerebrospinal fluid. So this is more of a technical thing that,
mm,
if it's done right, it can lead the client patient into an emotional release. And once we are engaged in an emotional release, we drop our guard down and then we can explore whatever issue we are exploring.
mm.
I did
You,
teach this
you don't do it
modality.
anymore, do you? Or do you still
I
teach
don't. I
that?
don't.
Okay.
In fact, I am not teaching Reiki anymore. I stopped doing that for quite a while. Uh, my work expanded beyond Reiki.
So it just goes to Akashic?
What the focus of my teachings in this past 12 years has been the four levels of the Akashic records,
Mm,
um, shamanism in different forms, tantric shamanism, or just plain shamanism, and trance dance, which is something that I love to do because I love to dance.
Yeah, that's
And
my next question. Yeah.
so these are also, to me, far more profound ways, not discounting that the Reiki is not, it cannot be profound, but then again, it's superficial,
Mm,
superficial, because it doesn't allow the practitioner or the client or patient to really dive deep into the intricacies of the consciousness.
yeah.
The reason why is true healing can only happen spontaneously when we enter an altered state of consciousness.
Yep.
And once we are inside of an altered state of consciousness is when the magic appears.
Right.
And so that is my goal, is to be able to push people, or push myself far deeper than the conscious mind into a deep altered state of consciousness,
Mm,
which is what I explore or perceive when I was 8, 9 years old,
right.
with those shamans. It's the same thing. So
Mm-hmm.
this has been an evolution of that for me. And for me, the greatest goal that I have is to provide the tools and the means for someone to do it themselves. I am not going to lay my hands on you like in Reiki.
Right.
You do it yourself. You created the karma, you deal with it. I'm going to hold the space for you. I'm going to give you the tools for you to do it, but you do it. It's not my karma. My
Yeah.
karma is to teach you how, but it's your karma to clean it up, not mine. So these other modalities uh, have been far, have a far deeper reaching into the intricacies of the consciousness that need to be explored to achieve something significant in terms of personal and family and planetary healing.
Right, right. You know what I found is like is these different types of energy healing modalities like Reiki and different types of emotional therapy and mysticism. I found is that it depends on the person and kind of where the level of consciousness, different layers. So some
Mhm.
people need kind of a surface layer help, and that kind of is almost acts like a permission slip to go deeper into the next layer. For some people, they're like, okay, let's just go from straight into consciousness, go straight into the root cause of why I create this in my life and why I'm experiencing it. So right into the Akashics, right into the consciousness field, right into the heart field. So it really depends on the person's level of consciousness and how far they want to, because some people going right into it is too much of they're taking too big of a bite that they're not prepared for, and so they need a little bit, kind of like a little touch. But what I found also with these other modalities like Reiki is sometimes people keep coming back. They get healed and then they keep coming back to get healed again. So it's like, okay, at some point you need to do some of your consciousness work within yourself to remove it completely and not recreate it.
Well, that's codependency and addiction. you know
Hmm.
so then again, why do you have to come back to get healed? If that really happened, maybe
Yeah.
they did not get healed. Maybe they felt better, and there's a big difference between feeling better and getting healed.
Hmm.
you know because
Yeah.
you don't get healed if you don't go to the root cause of
Right.
whatever it is that you're trying to heal.
Yep.
So if you're coming back for another session, another session, another session, how does that reflect in your life? Do you have codependent relationships? Do you have addictions in your life? So all of
Mhm.
this branches out into many more aspects of the condition of the mind than just that one episode of healing on the table with a Reiki practitioner.
Right. Right. Yeah. It
It's
comes down to
personal responsibility. It really comes down to personal responsibility.
Mhm.
And I have been doing this work almost my entire life, you know, and am I there? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's the same as when someone asks me, "Are you a shaman?" I say no. And they go, "Well, how come? We have heard of this." I said, "Well, I practice shamanism, but I am not going to put a label on me that
Right.
identifies me as something, because that is, again, an ego gratification.
Right. Right. Label. Yeah. Yeah.
Labels. So, if someone wants to heal, it's not going to take 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 Reiki sessions. Maybe
Right.
those open the door, for that individual to go and begin to explore other modalities, other aspects, and then to pay the dues, meaning to take the time to investigate every single day without with discipline. you
Right.
know Without it, it's not going to happen. I ask people, do you meditate? In my classes, I can have 60 or 75 people in a group. How many of you are meditators? And at least 80% bring their hand up. I say, well,
Mm.
fantastic, that's
Mm.
great. How many of you meditate 2 hours a day? And the hands go down.
Mm.
And maybe one, two. Then I say, how many of you meditate an hour a day? The
Mm.
same thing. Another hand goes up, or maybe a few hands, 4 or 5 out of a group of 70. And so, how many of you meditate 30 minutes a day religiously? And only a few hands go up. So, what does that tell you? What does that tell me? That you cannot go as deep as you want to be if you only dig a hole that needs to be 100 miles deep, and you only dig 2 inches a day.
Right. Right.
It's not going to happen. So, if you want to heal, if you want to understand the condition of your mind, if you want to explore, belief systems, if you want to be conscious,
Mm.
you have to take the time to pay your dues and sit every day with your practice, every single day, no matter what. But unfortunately, we have the distraction of social media. Life
Mm.
gets in the way,
Mm.
and people want to explore, 30 minutes on Facebook or Twitter or whatever it is, looking for likes or seeing what other people are doing, instead of sitting and meditating and going deep within themselves. So,
Right.
you know, no, this healing thing is, it really needs to have a great amount of desire, the
Right.
positive desire to accomplish something, which is to know yourself. That is that question, right? That old-fashioned question: who are you?
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's going to be a journey that everybody takes to find out, one, who are they, and also two, that they are consciousness. They're an expression of consciousness in physical form, and they and everybody else. So, the thing about the trance dancing that you mentioned earlier, that sounded fascinating. What can people who want to take the trance dancing workshop look forward to? And how does trance dancing help you connect to that heart field of source?
A life-changing experience is, in trance dance, we blindfold ourselves to
Mm.
eliminate all external distractions. There are no steps to follow. There is no movements to follow. You can dance like a wild, crazy person. You can be an animal on the floor. You can jump up and down. You can fly like an eagle. But the key word is trance. So there is a
Mm.
specific breathing method that I teach that allows the individual to go deep and enter into an altered state of consciousness.
Mm.
And then the dance is done from that altered state of consciousness. So this is a very deep meditation in motion that allows you to peel off or eliminate the outer layers that are preventing you from entering into a trance. It's a 7-day retreat. Okay, so it's
That
not
sounds
just a
like
one-time
fun.
deal. We're dancing, at least 4 hours a day, and we also have other mindful exercises, meditations, and rituals, and things like that to reinforce the training. But spontaneous healing is something that can happen also in trance dance, and I've seen it dozens of times in my uh, 30 years of doing trance dance,
Right.
in which, when the mind goes away and we are in the presence of consciousness, then the magic happens right there. The healing occurs at a physical level. as well as a mental and emotional level. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and I also love it because it's fun. And
Yeah, it's a good workout too.
yeah, and no one has ever told me that spirituality has to be serious, you know? So to me is, I love my life and I have fun in my life and I love doing what I do and I love to dance and I love to make jokes and I love to be mischievous
Yeah.
and I just love to enjoy life. And part of all of my trainings, but especially the trance dance, is a training that has all of the ingredients to be a lot of fun and
Mhm.
also give you the ability to dive very, very deep within yourself to enter spaces within the consciousness that perhaps you have never explored before.
Right. Yeah, I love that. I love the trance dancing because you know, I studied a little dance in college, but the dancing, oftentimes people are dancing because they're looking at other people, so they're dancing for other people or being influenced by other people looking at them. But the concept of completely blindfolding yourself and there's no one looking at you, and you could be by yourself, then it becomes more natural flow of whatever that field of energy that you're radiating at, it starts coming out. So
Well,
I
it's
just
a challenge,
love that.
but it's also a challenge because you're not in control anymore.
Mhm.
When you cannot see, you're not in control. And most people are control freaks, you
Mm.
know.
Mhm.
So if you are not in control of your environment because you cannot see, that is going to bring up issues of trust, you know. And everybody has, not everybody, but a lot of people have issues of trust and abandonment, you know.
Oh gosh,
So
yes. Trust and abandonment is like the number top issues. Bing, bing, bing for people.
all of these just surface
Yeah.
during the trance dance because you are not familiar. So not until you surrender to trust and you know that you're safe, because me and my co-facilitators are creating this safety, which is number one in trance dance is
Mhm.
safety, because I don't want anyone to get hurt, you know.
Yeah.
So once that space of safety is created and people understand it, once you dance 1 or 2 days blindfolded and you begin to move like this a little bit, not trusting, and then you know that everything
And then
is
you just get
okay, then you
crazy.
begin to move like that, and then you start dancing like a wild person.
Yeah.
Then is the surrender, then there is the magic, then there is the healing, then there is the outer state of consciousness that is going to guide you to whatever it is that you need to heal at this time.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that. That's such a fun way to do energy healing and to connect to consciousness. I just love that. Okay, so I'm not sure if you still do this, but how do you use sacred geometry for energy healing?
Well, sacred geometry is it's a big concept,
Oh yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so we have to narrow that concept to the way that in the way that I teach it and understand it.
Mhm.
Uh, the first time that one of my spirit guides told me that I had to teach sacred geometry, I started laughing. And I said, "Are you kidding me? I don't keep track of, I've never balanced my checkbook, arithmetic or mathematics 101
Yeah.
failed, and I'm not good with numbers and geometry, forget it." And he said, "No, it is not that. It will be revealed to you." So sacred geometry is, in the way that it teaches, is the understanding of shapes and colors
Mhm.
that come together to create a specific download from the intention that you have directly with the universe. And that creates a harmony in the world based on the colors and the shapes, the way they're put together in charts, so to
Right.
speak. And then you can use the energy that comes from that, you know, and your practice in your life, in the manifestation of anything that you want in your life. So if you want to manifest a relationship, you want to manifest
Mhm.
more money in your life, if you want to manifest deeper healing, if you want to manifest anything of what we have been talking about, all of that can be reduced to the understanding of shapes, geometrical shapes,
Right.
and colors, and how the combination of both create a specific vibration, a very unique and specific vibration that creates a very distinct uh, connection between your intention and the universe with those shapes and forms that give you the ability to manifest.
Right. Well stated. Yeah, I've written books on sacred geometry, and in Buddhism we call it Buddhist mandalas, your mandala. But it's, you know, when you tune in, the study of sacred geometry will help, like I always say, it will help rewire your consciousness to a fifth dimensional and above basis. And it's basically you're tuning in your Merkaba, you're tuning in your energy field and all those beautiful colors and your chakras inside it as well. So it's your energetic vessel to higher realities and to higher experiences. So I love the that you teach that as well as part of energy healing, because we are all energy. So if we heal those imbalances within our energy field, then we heal ourselves. And there's lots of fun ways to do it too. I love the fun aspect of it, because spirituality is not supposed to be serious. It's supposed to be fun. And this whole
That's right.
thing is spiritual. It's supposed to be fun. That's why we came down here for us to have some fun with it.
Now that we have to acknowledge that when we explore with the spirituality, we're going to come across and encounter painful memories, patterns, etc., etc. That is not very fun.
But you got to work. But that it came
Well,
up so you can resolve it.
absolutely, but that is not fun, and that's when people run away. Many
That's true.
people run away.
Yeah.
Okay, but what they don't understand is that by being face to face with that particular energy that surfaces based on your exploration, as ugly as it may be, once you heal it and it's completely neutralized,
You get a
then it's
charge
when you
out of
have
it.
the freedom to have fun. What is behind it, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, don't be, I mean, if I call that the some people call it the dark night of the soul. But if you're, yeah, if your issues that are lowering down your frequency, lowering down your ability to tune into higher levels of consciousness is coming up, then it's for you to resolve, learn that life lesson, and then grow from it so that you don't repeat it. And so that you can create bigger and better and higher experiences for yourself, because you have learned some of the basics that will no longer, it's like resolving your karma, resolving unbalanced energy, so you
Okay.
can tune in higher. So
But the dark night of the soul is far, far deeper than that.
yeah,
Far deeper than that. And if people have not experienced the dark night of the soul, then the concept of it is not there. But the dark night of the soul is when you have no ability whatsoever to do any of what you just mentioned, any of that. The
there,
dark night of the soul is when you are inside of a hole, and there's no way out, no way out. Then is when the merit that you have accumulated based on your spiritual practice can start giving you a glimpse of light at the end of the tunnel,
right,
you know? But
right.
it's very different.
Yeah, I tell people, if they think they're in a dark night of the soul experience, like the deepest depths of the dark night of the soul, just remember the thought that just remember something that's positive, and that will be your inkling to get you out of that. Just because as long as you remember one thing that's positive, that like maybe the sun rays, the sunrise, that is your spark that will take you out of that tunnel. Just follow that. So when you're really, really in the depths of it, it's hard to see something positive, but you can remember one thing: this, a smile of a child or somebody that hug you, that will
If
help you out.
if you are so overwhelmed by the conditions that put you in the dark night of the soul, you will not be able to see that. Not even you will not be able to imagine that smile or that ray of the sun, because you're so much into that deep, deep, deep energy.
Mm.
So the acceptance that that's exactly what you are, and to rest in the space of acceptance of that is what you are, and to meditate, to go deep within, to begin to understand the reasons why you created the conditions in your life that put you in that position, will eventually, within a few hours, a few days, hopefully not a few months,
Mm.
give you that glimpse of light that you are talking about, and the ability to
Right.
clear the mind sufficiently to be able to see that smile, to see, to feel that spark of love.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I experienced this, very directly in my life. Especially after Hurricane Andrew here in Miami back, I don't know, 25 years ago, whatever.
Oh, yeah. I remember
Which I
that
lost
one.
absolutely everything, everything, everything. I was living in my car for 2 weeks.
No.
Not a lot of people have had an experience like that. And then the loss of everything, I mean, that really put me owing money. I mean, my ex-wife after me for money. I mean, all kinds of stuff, that just put me into this deep, deep
You
space
hit your bottom.
of depression.
Mm-hmm.
However, the recognition of that once I was on the other side is what was fun.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, it was not fun, but coming out was fun because I came out of that self-realization with greater knowledge of myself
Mm-hmm.
than I had before. And that was and has been one of the most beautiful, delicious lessons in my life, to know who I am.
Right. Right. That was your journey. Let me ask you something about that really quick, because as you come out of your darker journey into the lighter aspect of your creation process within your consciousness, many people, and I have this as well, many people will have a kind of a more clear connection to spirit guides, ancestors, beings in higher dimensions and in different realms. What can you say for people who are first coming into these experiences and trying to kind of toggle between their responsibilities in their life and also having kind of a channel to these other beings?
I don't understand what you mean coming into these experiences.
Coming into hearing and speaking to their spirit guides, because you said earlier you talked to your spirit guides. For
Yeah.
some people, that's new. What can you say for people who's new into the experience of hearing or through synchronicity, communicating with their spirit guides?
What I would say is challenge them.
Oh, that's a good one. People don't ever challenge them.
Challenge
I love
them.
that.
When they show up, or you go and see them, hear them, perceive them, whatever, don't just believe that they are who they say they are.
Discernment. Yes.
Because there can be entities from the astral plane pretending to
Uh-huh.
be a spirit guide.
Uh-huh.
you know
Uh-huh.
so if you don't challenge them, to say, who are you, where do you come from, what are you doing here, etc., you challenge them. And then there are specific things that people can do, such as look at me straight in the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
If that entity, that spirit, whatever, doesn't want to look at you straight in the eyes, is not from the light.
Uh-huh.
Breathe on me. If it's a foul smell, is not from the light. I mean, just, you have to challenge and convince me that you are who you say you are. Why
Uh-huh.
should I believe you? Just, no, 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 no. And that's a huge mistake that people make, that the spirit shows up and they go, I'm your spirit guide, I am Mother Mary, I am Saint Germain, I am whomever. And people go, oh, great. When
Take
reality,
over, please. Take over.
which
That's
in
what they.
reality could be an entity that is trapped in the astral plane, pretending to be something that they are not.
Right.
So that's what I would say to people.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, challenge them. Have discernment, people, especially when you come into spiritual experiences and you're opening your consciousness up to other beings. Have discernment too, because this is not your, hey, take over my life. Here you go. I don't want to live my life anymore. Take it over. Tell me what to do.
And the same thing,
Everything.
and that discernment, that challenging, should also be applied to spiritual teachers,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
because the world is a big spiritual supermarket.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's millions of people that are the consumers.
Oh yeah.
Okay. But they have to, so there is a consumer, there has to be a provider. And the provider, the teachers, may not be qualified at all to teach. and they can say anything that they want on paper, on
Right.
Facebook, on whatever. You can paint the best picture of you, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
But who are you? How has your life changed as a result of using the Akashic records?
Right.
Are you more kind, more loving? You have more money in the bank? Are you more at peace within yourself? Your personal relationships. Who taught you this system? How long have you been practicing? Challenge your teacher.
Yeah.
Ask questions.
Yeah. And
And
they
know
have,
that and if that teacher reacts like, oh, I'm just like whatever, then know that then that ego reaction maybe is not the right teacher for you. But if the
mm-hmm.
teacher is humble, if the teacher says to you, yes, I've been doing this for 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, and this is what has happened in my life, and blah 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 blah, okay, it's the same thing. So you have the right to challenge the spirits that show up as much as you have the right to challenge the teachers, because if not, you're going to be engaged in connecting to negative karma.
Right. Oh, well said. I love that. I well said, because there are so many people who are, whether it's in person with their teacher or whether it's in spirit, where they connect to their guides or whomever on the other side, they're just gonna. So many people get taken for a ride, and
Money and money.
yeah, yeah. And even on the spirit side, when you connect to your spirit guides and whoever you connect to on the higher dimensions, and different planes of reality, they will have the best interest in you, and they'll be respectful of your choices. They're not going to take you for a ride because they're not going to get any money like like a physical teacher may, or get anything physically. But what they'll get is your focus, your energy, and your time.
Energy vampires.
Energy vampires are energy vampires. They'll suck you dry of your livelihood. That's all, you'll be doing their bidding all day, every day, and not really have your life, and your life will kind of be theirs. So it's the same kind of thing. I call it a spiritual bully. So yes, very good reminder for people in the space. Have discernment and challenge them. Um, okay, so we've already talked about, help different techniques to help people quiet the chatter of the ego and to connect to the spiritual emptiness of source. Now, your website has free library of meditation recordings that you have up there. And are they a collaborative effort from you and your other instructors? All the meditation recordings that people can listen to?
Well, these are my own recordings during sometimes during classes, you know, and everyone can go to the website and download the meditations or music or whatever.
Mm. Oh yeah, I listened to some of them. They were very, very very calming and peaceful. So I listened to a lot of different people's meditations to kind of go, oh, and everybody's meditations have a slightly different energy signature. So because everybody has a different frequency, they have a different mandala. So yours is very calming. It's almost like I can kind of hear birds kind of chirping.
Well, some of those were recorded probably in the places like Costa Rica or Bali, where there were monkeys or birds chirping. Yes.
Okay, well they were okay. I'm like sitting here like, oh, I feel like I'm in the tropics having a meditation. Okay, so last question, Ernesto. What are your suggestions for building a fifth dimensional society in times of turbulence?
To have the courage to look deep within the self and to see what is your personal contribution to the way in which we are experiencing the world today. And then take whatever necessary steps you need to take in order to bring this to balance in your life and your relationship with the world itself.
Well stated. Well, Ernesto, thank you for adding such fun ways to connect to the energy of the main creator in us and everybody else through our heart field. And so, everyone, we present you even more unique ways to connect to the crystalline consciousness of Source that you are and everyone else, and to anchor in more of that multidimensional self. So, for more information about Ernesto Ortiz's offerings, please go ahead and visit his company website, which is journey to the number 2 theheart.com. So that's journey and then the number 2 theheart.com. And thank you
Or they can just have Journey to the Heart with a T-O. It's either way,
there.
they will get there.
Oh, we'll get there. Okay, awesome. Thank you again to the listeners for listening to another enlightening conversation. Until next time, blessings.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the 5th dimension. For more information about today's guest, please go to the show description. For more information about Vaughn's metaphysical work, please go to merkabachakras.com. The views expressed today are for entertainment purposes and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or replace any medical or legal advice. Don't forget to subscribe for more interviews about the 5th dimension. Until we meet again, blessings.